Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of Africa Today, where we get you the latest news and events taking place on the African scene. And we will start off with our major top stories and reports. Egypt has remained as a top recipient of foreign direct investment in Africa for the fifth year in a row, reaching $5.9 billion, which represents 53% of foreign direct investments. More details.
Egypt has remained as a top recipient of foreign direct investment in Africa for the fifth year in a row in 2020-2021, reaching $5.9 billion, which represents 53% of foreign direct investment directed to the North Africa. Egypt has improved the business environment, which includes benefiting from the building and institutional and legislative reforms, such as the new investment and bankruptcy law, as well as amending the public-private partnership law, amending the capital market. Egypt has also launched the National Structural Reform Program, which includes a set of supporting pillars like increasing the relative weight of sectors industry, agriculture, communications and information technology in the Egyptian economy, in addition to improving the efficiency of the labor market and technical and vocational education and training through developing the technical education and vocational training system. A report by the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development revealed that despite the challenges posed by the Corona crisis, Egypt remained at the forefront of foreign direct investment in Africa. The report indicated that foreign direct investment increased in the first quarter of 2021-2022 by 4%, with inward investment in non-petroleum sectors increasing by 28%, including industry, financial services, construction, information technology, and communication. The report indicated that the United Kingdom accounts for 34% of the total foreign direct investment, followed by the United States.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and with us over the phone is Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, Foreign Assistant to Foreign Minister. Good afternoon, Mr. Ambassador.
By the way, I am the Foreign Assistant Minister, not to the Minister. The Assistant to the Minister is the
Right. Sir, yes. Good afternoon, and we would like to start by talking about foreign direct investment. How do you see the significance of foreign direct investment in Egypt? And Egypt has remained as a top recipient of foreign direct investment in Africa for the fifth year in a row in 2021. How do you see the significance of this?
Why do we need foreign direct investment?
Yes.
Because we gave birth in the last 20 years, since 2011, to 25 million children. This is a big burden. We have to find 25 million beds, 25 million desks in the schools, and how to feed them.
Yes.
By the way, 25 million is double the size of Greece.
Yeah.
So we need to invest in order to produce more and more for the coming generation. In order to keep this, we have to keep a rate of development not less than 7-8%.
Yes.
To do that, we have to save 30% of our income. Because we are not that rich, we are saving 15% of our income. So we still have to fill the gap of 15%. From where do we get this? From Egyptians living abroad, from the Arabs, because Arabs are investing a lot abroad, and from foreigners in Europe, in the States and Japan, because they come also with new technology. Some Egyptians are very jealous that why not we invest only Egyptians. The money in Egypt is not enough. It will not feed 100 million inhabitants. So that's why we need foreign direct investment. That's why we need to make the life of an investor much better. Because this investor is measuring the time he would be losing in order to put his money in the bank, how much time he will lose since he will put the first $1 million in the bank until he got the first $100,000 as profits.
Yeah.
So bureaucracy is our enemy. Banking system must be ameliorated. And the idea of an Egyptian about an investor is very important.
Right. Well, sir, a report by the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development revealed that despite the challenges posed by the corona crisis, Egypt remained at the forefront of foreign direct investment in Africa. What's your take on that?
This proves that we are on the right direction. When the epidemic Corona-19 came, couple of years ago, we were ready in ahead. Egyptians are famous that they are courageous, they accept the challenge, and we started our economic reform since November 2016. Then when the corona came, we were already standing on solid ground. Also, when the war between Russia and Ukraine came, we were already in a good position. So most of the countries of the whole world will be diminishing. I mean, the GDP will be diminishing, not increasing. Except very few countries, including Egypt, we shall continue growing positively. This is the good news. The bad news is that we are not growing enough. We have to double our efforts and to know that we have to work, to produce, to create jobs for the young generation in order to finish his studies and immediately he can find a way to work.
Yeah. Ambassador Bayoumi, do you agree that Africa is a promising market for Egypt in the current period and the Egyptian market is also a window to Europe to access the African market?
Yes, but I love Africa. I fell in love in Africa. With Africa when I served there.
Yes.
It is a huge opportunity for the future. But are you ready to do your homework to go to Africa? Africa has no good transport system.
Yes.
Egypt Air doesn't cover all Africa. If I want to go to Cameroon when I was ambassador there, the same day I have to go to Paris. Then I have to pay triple my ticket.
Yes.
Or I go to Kenya or to Lagos and spend 3 days. This is number one. Do you have first-class banking system in Africa? No. The big question I am asking the rich countries, do you know which is bigger, the flow of money going to Africa or the flow of money coming out of Africa? Africa is paying its debts. It's paying its invoice of imports, while it does not catch enough investment or it does not export quite enough. This is the challenge. Now, if I come to some businessmen in the Arab world or Egypt, asking them to go to Kenya or to Cameroon or Nigeria, it is easier to go to Cairo or to go to Riyadh or to go even to Brussels. It needs a challenge and it needs the government to be there, that we support the exporter to Africa, we support the investor in Africa against any challenges he would face. So it is, of course, it's a big opportunity. And at the same time, it is a big homework. We have to be ready to do it for ourselves and for Africa.
Sir, in addition to transportation, as you've just mentioned, what are the other challenges that you think are important for the investor to be aware of before starting to invest in Africa, like the banking system and so on?
Africa has finished with colonialism time. Yeah. But now the colonialism is coming in a shape of economy. Our Minister of Industry asked me to import wood from Cameroon and to export railways. Yes. The concerned minister in Cameroon told me, yes, I can buy your railways, but I cannot sell you our wood. Because all the wood in Cameroon, which is a huge forest wood, it is already sold to the European companies. If you want to buy Cameroonian wood, you have to go to Paris or Rome or London. And you pay here triple price. So investment is the question here. I want our young people, 100 young people to go with 100 saws to cut the wood and with 100 tractors to transport the wood, and then you will get the wood half price.
Yes.
Are you ready to do that? I think it's not a big problem. So we have to start thinking like that. And once I have a very nice experience that I imported canned food from Egypt, I tried to sell it to my colleagues in the diplomatic life in Cameroon. The Prime Minister of Cameroon called me and said, I am not thanking you for this. I am congratulating you because Egypt has such an industry. Come and teach us how to make use of our vegetables and fruits, which we lose it because we do not have a way to keep it or to freeze it or to send it again for exports. So the chances are big, but we have to be up to it.
Sir, Egypt has a number of trade agreements that link it with the 55 African states aiming to increase economic cooperation. The most recent was the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. How do you see the significance of this agreement?
This is very important and it matches our policy for trade. We started by being a member in the GATT. We then concluded a huge agreement with the Arab world. We have a free trade area with all the Arab countries, the 22 Arab countries. We have a very challenging agreement with Europe. 500 million Europeans. We can export without custom duties. And now we have two challenges in Africa. The Western countries, 21 countries, establish a free trade area. And by the way, it makes our export to Africa triple. Now, during the presidency of our president to the African Union, we establish the total Africa free trade area. This is the largest free trade area in the world, 1,200 million inhabitants. And this would be a good attraction for an investor. I tell the investor, if you come to Egypt and produce cars, you will not sell it to the 100 million Egyptian only. You will send it to 1,200 million in Africa, 500 million in Europe, and 400 million in the Arab world. This is a huge opportunity if we can market for it.
Sir, do you agree that Africa should capitalize on this agreement to enhance joint cooperation between African countries, increase the private sector's engagement, and facilitate the restructure of regulatory legislations?
Exactly. I think that it's not only the agreements. It is the person. The most important wealth is in a country like Egypt is the human beings. And if we train them, they can, of course, act according to what you are asking. But agreements are there. Who will implement the agreement is a very important point. And I think there are opportunities for this. And we have to work seriously until we realize those agreements in practice.
Right. Well, I would like to thank you very much, Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi. Many thanks for your insights, sir. And moving back to our reports, Egypt has invited African countries to hold a consultative session on climate and energy to coordinate the African position ahead of COP27 in November. More details.
Egypt has invited African countries to hold a consultative session on climate and energy to coordinate the African position ahead of COP27 in November. In a workshop held by Morocco via video conference on the challenges of mobilizing capital markets to finance the transition to a sustainable energy market, Egyptian ambassador to Ethiopia and the African Union, Mohammed Ged, said Egypt strives to raise dependency on renewable energy from 18% to 45% by 2025. Ged called on the African nations to arrive at a fair transition to renewable energy and secure sustainable financing of green energy projects in Africa, as well as to follow up the pledges of made to Africa in COP26. The workshop and the consultative session for which Egypt called come in a series of meetings on the sidelines of the latest African Union summit in Addis Ababa to consolidate a unified African stance on climate issues and present it in COP27, which will be held in Egypt's Sharm el-Sheikh. For his part, John Paul Adam, the Director of Technology, Climate Change and Natural Resources Management in the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, said Africa constitutes less than 1% of the share of green bonds to finance renewable energy and green economy projects worldwide. Adam called on the African states to coordinate at the level of legislation and to control prices to encourage the private sector to invest in energy, as well as to ensure the availability of data and information to make sound decisions towards a world of renewable and equity energy. He emphasized that countries that invested in renewable energy early on have benefited from price stability and distanced themselves from increasing energy prices in light of international turmoil.
Welcome back. South Africa is officially the continent's most affected country by COVID-19. The number of new infections in the last 24 hours is still up compared to the last few days. More details.
Health officials and scientists have said that South Africa may be entering a fifth COVID wave earlier than expected after a sustained rise in infections over the past 14 days that seems to be driven by the BA4 and BA5 Omicron subvariants. The country that has recorded the most coronavirus cases and deaths on the African continent only existed a fourth wave around January, have predicted a fifth wave could start in May or June early in the southern hemisphere winter. The health ministry, Joe Fafa, told a briefing that although hospitalizations were increasing, there was so far no dramatic change in admissions to intensive care units or deaths. He said at this stage, health authorities have not been alerted at any new variant other than changes to the dominant Omicron variant circulating. The infectious disease specialist Richard Lessels told the same briefing that warning immunity from previous waves could be contributing to the earlier than expected rise in cases. He said that rising share of infections attributed to the BA4 and BA5 sub-lineages of Omicron suggested they had a growth advantage over other Omicron subvariants such as BA2. So far, there was no sign that BA4 and BA5 were causing significantly more severe disease. The WHO's African office flagged the rise in South Africa's infections as the main driver of an increase on the African continent.
Welcome back, dear viewers, and with that we come to the end of this edition of Africa Today. Many thanks for watching and stay tuned for more coming up here on Nile TV International.